just coming in that Chad's president, Idriss Deby, has died. The 68-year-old had been in power for 30 years and had just in fact been re-elected for a sixth term in office. He is said to have died of injuries suffered on the front line of a battle between Chadian troops and rebels. Following the results of the election, which had come in just earlier this Tuesday, Deby did not turn up to a party in the capital to mark his latest victory, instead said to have gone to visit those soldiers. Little detail as to exactly what took place from then, now just being told by the army that Deby died there. On Monday, the army had said it had beaten back a column of insurgents that were advancing towards the capital. Well, since taking office in a rebellion in 1990, Deby has faced repeated insurgencies and also growing criticism over his management of the country's oil wealth and his crackdown on opponents. The main opposition parties had in fact boycotted the vote just earlier this month. Deby had, however, been seen by many Western nations as an ally in the fight against extremist groups like Boko Haram and the Islamic State in Sahel. So a big character, a man who had been in power, as I said, for 3 decades. Well, we can speak now to Professor specialised in African Studies, Douglas Yates. Douglas, we're just getting that news of the death of Idriss Deby, apparently succumbing to injuries on the front line with rebel groups.
Hello, what a surprise. Frankly, 2 days ago, news had come out from the U.S. Embassy that they were evacuating personnel because there were rebels marching on the Capitol. And frankly, the thought was, well, he will defeat them because he has systematically defeated every attempted coup before now. He was not a great Democrat. He was in his 6th term, but he was a real soldier. And in some ways, this was a worthy death for him. To die involved in the battle, I think, is better than to die in his bed with, golden objects surrounding him like a kleptocrat. So it's a mixed day for his obituary. One thing's certain, France has just lost one of its key allies in the region.
Indeed, many Western nations seeing Deby as an ally, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you mentioned it there. Deby had faced insurgencies before. It did, though, look like the violence was growing exponentially in recent months. Can you tell us a bit more about the context of how this has happened in Chad?
Yeah, so they say there's an expression in Chad that the coup always comes from the east. Deby himself came from the east, from the Zagawa people, who also are the people of Darfur. And there's been a simmering problem in the eastern region with members of his own group. This is the most warlike group, the group who has staged successive coups d'etats. These are soldiers. When you see Chadian troops, they're like 6'4", 6'5". They run straight into machine gun fire and they take the mountains. They're brave, warlike people. And among his own people, there was a feeling that he was not distributing the oil wealth to them. Frankly, there's probably not enough oil wealth really to go around to everyone. But basically, there were people who were unhappy, who felt like they were not getting their share. And that's been a repeated pattern in attempted coups.
So anger there growing at home. Also, we had seen, of course, that the opposition in Chad the main opposition had boycotted that very recent election. But, what kind of impact will this leave then on the politics of the country? Is there someone you think ready to step into Idriss Deby's role?
No, because he's been in power so long and eliminating any rivals and imprisoning his democratic opposition. What you have are a large number of people who would like to be president of Chad rather than one unified opposition leader. So expect things to get messy during the transition. Like Napoleon had said, after me, the flood, and certainly after Idriss Deby, the flood.
Indeed, especially when it's so sudden as well. Now, you mentioned there that he was seen as a key ally of France, indeed internationally seen somewhat as a weapon against insurgent groups. Can you tell me a bit more about the role that Deby played on that front and where that may leave it now?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So Chad is really in the center of Africa. So on the west at Lake Chad, Deby was involved in the battle against Boko Haram, which we usually associate with Cameroon and Nigeria. On the south, Deby was involved in the battle in Central Africa, where France and the UN have had interventions and a peacekeeping mission, and the war is booming up. To the north, Deby had been involved as France's ally in the war against the jihadists in Mali, going all the way up to the Afoga Mountains. And then, of course, in the east, Deby's Zagawa people in Darfur, with an enormous camp of Darfuri refugees in eastern Chad. So Deby has been in the center of literally all of the major military and geopolitical battles of the Central African region and the Sahel. He was a key figure, and there is no one who will be able to replace him in that role.